Hi, I'm Larry. Our channel is Downsizing Makes Sense. We're going to share our journey moving from a 3,000 square foot house to living in a fifth wheel full-time traveling across the country. Today I want to start a conversation about choosing the right truck for pulling a fifth wheel. Now I'm going to be as brief as possible. This is a conversation that could go on for hours. Now I'm no truck expert. As a matter of fact, I've never owned a pickup truck before in my life. That's why I had to do a lot of research on YouTube, on blogs, websites, manufacturers' websites. I had to do a ton of research to help me make the best decision for buying the right truck for me and my choice for the fifth wheel that I was going to buy. Now, some of the most important considerations that I looked at when buying a truck for a fifth wheel were, of course, budget, towing capacity, payload capacity, dual wheel versus single wheel, that's dually, 4x4 versus 4x2, diesel versus gas, new versus used, how much we were going to travel, what was our anticipated miles that we were going to travel, whether or not we were going to be boondocking or just staying on pavement and going from campground to campground, warranty, axle ratios, there's several axle ratios available, which transmission I was going to get. Most manufacturers offer several different transmission options. Then, of course, the OEM towing package for both fifth wheels and goosenecks. Okay, this video is about buying a truck for a fifth wheel. Now, as far as how we came across our decision to buy a fifth wheel versus some of the other choices, that's a video topic on its own. But very briefly, we'd owned a travel trailer, so we didn't want to go there. We owned a Class B that was just way too small. So our choices really were between a Class A and a fifth wheel. We really liked the living space that was available in a fifth wheel, and since we were going to be spending a week to 2 weeks at each location, we really didn't need the extra mobility that you get from a Class A. That's how we came up with the fifth wheel as our choice. Now, the first thing we had to do is look at brand. There's the Chevy GM, there is the Ford, and then there's the Ram. Now, everybody out there that owns a truck is probably loyal to a particular branded truck, so their choice is going to be a little bit easier. Since I'd never owned a pickup truck before, I didn't have any brand loyalty to a particular brand. So the first thing I did when looking at all the different brands was I made a spreadsheet. I went out to all the YouTube videos, all the blogs and websites, and I created a spreadsheet with all the pertinent information I'd need to make a decision of buying the right truck. We're talking about towing capacity, payload capacity, the different options that each one of the brands offered. The engine is really important. The transmission is really important. All of these things go into, what brand of truck you're going to get. Now, I guess if you were going to buy the ultimate truck, you'd buy a truck that had the Allison transmission, that had the Ram Cummins engine, and the Ford body. That seemed to be something that everybody really wanted, was that combination. But since that combination is not out there, we really look at what was the most important thing that I wanted in a truck. And to me, it was the engine. I wanted a very durable, reliable engine. That was the most important thing to me. When looking at all the blogs and the videos out there, it seemed pretty conclusive that if engine was really important to you, that the Cummins engine is the one that you wanted. Now, it's an inline six versus the other two are V8s. To me, that made it seem like it was going to be more durable and easier to work on. Now, after choosing the brand of truck that I was going to get, and I decided on the Ram, I was going to get the Ram 3500, I had to make the first decision, which was dually versus single rear wheel. Now, I probably could have gotten away with a single rear wheel because I was looking at getting a 35-ish foot fifth wheel, and the pin weight was really going to be within the capacity, but kind of close to the top of the capacity for a single rear wheel Ram 3500. So, making the decision to get a dually was pretty easy. I also wanted the extra durability that, having the dual wheel wheels and having all that fifth wheel payload on top of the truck was going to create less wear and tear in the truck over time. Then, of course, everybody agreed that the dual wheel really just tracks better when pulling a fifth wheel. You're just not going to feel as much of the road. You're not going to feel the tractor trailers blowing by you at 80 miles an hour. You're just going to feel more comfortable, and you're going to feel safer driving down the road with a dual rear wheel. Now, long bed versus short bed, for me, it was pretty easy. Since I decided to buy a dual rear wheel, the Ram 3500 really did not come in a short bed option. And even if it did, I probably wouldn't have gotten one of the short beds. I really didn't want to have to deal with all those slider hitches. I had already decided I was going to get a BMW companion hitch, and whatever truck I wanted, to be able to just pop it into a long bed and not have to worry about it. Now, as far as cab size, we're going to be traveling with our 2 dogs. Now, we have 2 small dogs that are kind of old, and they needed a lot of room to be comfortable traveling with us. Now, we could be looking at some long travel days, so we wanted to be able to put their doggy beds back there with all their comforts to be able to travel down the road. And for us, a crew cab and crew cab doors was going to give us the comfort for the dogs and the accessibility, and also be able to store some things as we're traveling. Now that I wanted to get the long bed crew cab dually, we're talking about a truck that was going to be over 22 feet long and really, really wide. With a foot of extra width on each side, it was going to make it a little bit of inconvenience when driving the truck around when we didn't have the 5th wheel. But for me, it was worth the inconvenience to have those extra features, having the dual wheel, long bed, crew cab. Now, when looking at 4-wheel drive versus 2-wheel drive, it was a pretty easy decision for us because we really planned on doing as much boondocking as possible. Now, a 35-foot 5th wheel is not going to be able to get deep down into some of those forest roads, but we are going to get off-road. And no matter where you are off-road, if you're in dirt somewhere, there's a chance that it could pour rain overnight and you go to leave the next morning and your 5th wheel and your truck are in mud. And I just figured having that 4-wheel drive capability is going to be really important to get us out of situations like that. Now, transmission is the other thing we had to look at. Now, the Ram came with 3 different transmission options. It comes with a manual transmission, which we knew we didn't want. So the 2 automatic transmissions were the Chrysler transmission and then the Aisin transmission. Now, in doing a lot of reading about the transmissions, the Aisin was about as closest thing that came to as good as that Allison transmission in the Chevy. And it was about a $2,800 option on a new truck. But everybody was conclusive that if you're going to pull a 5th wheel and you're going to invest the money into a big Ram 3500 diesel high output truck, then it was worth it for the extra money to get the Aisin transmission. So that was something I definitely wanted to have. Of course, since I'm buying this truck for a 5th wheel, I wanted to have the OEM prep package for a 5th wheel or a gooseneck. That was a given. Okay, now as far as new versus used goes, in the specifications that I wanted when I went to my Ram dealer, I was looking at spending between $75,000 and $80,000 for a 2019 truck. Well, that just really wasn't in our budget, so I was looking at used. Okay, now I decided to get a used truck. One of the first places that I went to was Gibson Truck World in Sanford, Florida. And these guys were experts in trucks, especially these high output diesel trucks and all the different brands that are available. Now, when consulting with the guy on the phone, I told him I wanted the Ram, and he told me that to get a truck, a used truck with all the specifications that I wanted, was going to cost me about $50,000 for a 2 or 3 year old truck that had between 50 and 75,000 miles. Now, that was a little bit over the budget that I had thought, but I really wanted to get something that was late model, that I didn't have to worry about doing a lot of repairs early on in my ownership. Now, Gibson Truck World at the time did not have a truck that met my specifications, but he put me on the list. He says he comes across these trucks often, and as soon as he got one in or he saw one that was available, he was going to call me and have me come in and look at it. Now, in the meantime, I decided to go on Auto Trader and look at all the used trucks that were available on Auto Trader. I was actually at the Ram dealership in my hometown when I got a notification from Auto Trader of a truck that came up. It was actually a new 2018 with all my specifications: Ram 3500, Aisin transmission, dually long bed, crew cab. It had everything I wanted, and it was $60,000. Now, at first I thought it was some kind of mistake, so I quickly messaged the dealer on Auto Trader, and the guy called me back in about 30 seconds. So I'm sitting in the Ram dealership when the guy called me, confirmed that the truck had everything that I wanted, and it was $60,000. I gave the guy a $500 deposit over the phone, and I told him that I would be there the next morning. Now, originally, we had decided to sell our house and use the proceeds from the house to buy the truck and buy the RV. Now, coming across this deal kind of threw a wrench in that plan because we hadn't sold our house yet, but I really wanted this truck, so I decided just to finance it. I went online and looked at my bank and a couple other banks, and I found rates that were probably in the 3.99 to 4% interest rate. When I got to the dealership, I told him I had already arranged my financing, but he said, let me try to beat it. And sure enough, they did. They gave me a 3.69% interest rate for 5 years, which I thought was really good. Now, I wasn't going to keep the truck loan that long because as soon as the house sold, I was going to pay it off. But we've already had the house up for sale for 4 months and it hasn't sold. So I figured, you know, it's better to get a loan with a good rate, and then when the house does sell, we'll pay off the truck, and then we'll pay off the RV. Okay, I went over to this dealer, which was actually in Venice, Florida. It's about 4 hours from our house. Got there in the morning, went through all the paperwork, bought the truck, and when I saw the payment on the paperwork, I nearly about freaked out. It was over $900 for a payment. I never paid more than about $24,000 for a car, new or used, in my entire life, and I probably owned 15 or 20 cars. So that sticker shock of that payment nearly freaked me out. But since I wasn't going to be keeping the loan that long, I really wasn't worried about it. As soon as my house sells, I was going to pay off the loan, and I wasn't really that concerned. Well, thanks very much for watching this video about my journey in buying a truck for my fifth wheel. Please come back and watch more videos, and we continue to share our journey about moving from our 3,000 square foot house to living full-time at our fifth wheel, traveling across the country, and everything that entails. You know, downsizing, get rid of all of our stuff, selling the house, you know, quitting our jobs, trying to find new ways to create income, creating our encore career. Everything that we're going to go through on this journey, we're going to share on YouTube. So again, thanks for watching. Please consider subscribing so you won't miss any more videos, and also hit that notification bell so you get notified when we do add another video.